So make sure it's 120 power, 20 volts. Check the switches are made. Okay. So we'll check the power coming is 120, and we want to be 120. Check the circuit breakers and fuse and make sure they have continuity. I always keep saying check continuity because it's always an important thing to check when you have no power and no nothing. Okay, no heat. Again, if the primary control has power, but no power is going to the burner motor, ignition, and coil and oil valve, what could be the problem? First of all, check that there's no fire in the chamber. We check that everything is getting power, but there's no fire. If there's fire, what would happen? We've been through this a lot. We said if we have fire, it means the control is not going to ignite because it will think there's fire, and it's a bad situation to throw fire and oil into it. So make sure that there's no fire. If there's fire, find out why and what happened before. So that could be the problem. Check the thermostat and make sure it's set above the room temperature. If you put it at 70 and the room is already at 70, it's not going to click. So you can turn it up and see, and you can also jumper that to see if it's working or not. Jumper the thermostat in the terminals in the CAD and check if they are working or not. So again, that's another way to troubleshoot. We did some troubleshooting while we were in the boards, but it's different in lifetime. I mean, in real life, a little bit, not a lot, but it should be similar. So check the thermostat, make sure the thermostat is functioning, and if you jumper the equipment and the thermostat comes in, that means something is wrong with the thermostat. If the burner does not start, jumper the FF terminal and see if the burner starts. So if we jumper the FF terminals, it should come a little bit and goes out. Because and actually, if you jump on the thermostat, if the burner starts, something wrong with the CAD cell. Because if we jump on the thermostat, it will think there is low resistance and it should not come in. If it comes, there's something wrong with the FF terminals, which is the CAD control. So again, the CAD has to be, you can take it out and test it. Again, it should be more than 10,000 ohms in the dark and less than 1,000 in the light. So check no flame with oil. Replace and check the nozzle. So the nozzle, check the oil pressure. We said it's 120 to, I mean, from 100, could be 120, 150, but usually it's 100, between 100 and 150. So check that you have the right oil pressure. Check the air setting. Do we have the right setting for the air? Is it clogged? Is it open all the way? What happens if the air is open all the way? That's a big possibility. You're blowing the flame away and it's not containing flame. So you want it to be not too much. Not too much. And not closed also. Okay. What else? Another case, if the burner fires but shuts off in safety, that's happens a lot. So we have fire, then it goes away, and we had that actually before spring break with a couple of the students. We tried to turn it on, it turns on, then it goes away. Check the stack relay is functioning correctly, and the contacts are made completely. If they're not made completely, something is wrong with those contacts that does disconnect. Check the CAD cell, because within 15 seconds, if it doesn't see the light, it will go out. So that could be a problem. Check the air tube, clean and replace. That's where we have air coming to the motor. And then check water or air in the nozzle line. So make sure that so if the oil comes up, you have some flame, then it goes away. Sometimes there is not enough air, so we're functioning on the air and there's not enough oil. We're functioning and we're lighting the oil in the nozzle line. As it goes out, it will stop. Then some little bit of oil will come in as the pressure increases. It comes out again, then it goes off. So make sure there's continuous continuous oil flow and there is no water or air in the nozzle line. Again, no heat. Motor does not start. Check and reset the motor. So there's nothing in the motor at all. It's not functioning, so we'll check the motor, reset, check the circuit, make sure again it's getting 120 volts. A lot of times we have voltage but not enough voltage, something went wrong. Check the motor capacitor if it has one. If you have a split phase plug, it has a capacitor, so make sure we have the right capacitor. If all of this checked and the motor is still not running, probably something wrong with the winding, probably it's burnt. Change the motor. Okay, we have heat, there is fire, the burner is working okay, but there is no heat distribution. So now we go outside the burner. So first we do, if we have a hot water system, you want to check that the valves are open, those are the zoning valve. Check the pipe line for pressure, make sure there's enough pressure. If we have water is very heavy, guys. If we don't have enough water pressure, enough pressure to push the water on, probably the pump will turn on, but no water will circulate because probably the pump is weak. So sometimes things are working, but they're not working the way they're supposed to be. Check the circulator, make sure it's giving off enough pressure. Make sure also it's on. Check the flow control valve, that it's installed correctly, it's not faulty on the closed section, closed position. Check that there's no air in the system. What happens if there's air in the system? So the pump is running, water is pumping, but there's air. Water is not going to go push air, go around air. Air is going to be compressed and the system is called air bound. So at this point you have to purge the system, same thing that you did with the oil pump. So it's always a purging valve near the boiler. Turn it on and let the water run a little bit so you get rid of air. This always happens whenever you change a new equipment or if you have a leak. A leak will cause you to have air leak. Check the high limit on the primary control. Make sure it's set at the right temperature. If it's set at 120, probably it's not going to go more than that and you'll shut off and there is no heat. Make sense? Possible. Especially if you have one of those digital ones where you don't see it right away and just keep flipping back and forth. So check the high limit and check the reverse aquastat that is set properly, that the high and low limit are working okay. And again, when you do hot water system and you do some check, make sure it shut off at high limit and turn on the pump at the low limit. So again, this is to check our circuit. No heat circulation, and this time is warm air system. So check the fan is on. Fan limit, this is fan limit control. Limit. Check that all the dampers are open. If the damper is closed, there is no airflow. That's kind of like the valve in a water system. Check the air filter if it's clogged. Check the air blower for operation. That's the inducer fan. And check the motor, make sure it's running. We had an issue with the motor in the lab as well where the motor was wired incorrectly. Check the belt for tension. If it's too loose, probably there's a lot of slipping. If it's too tight, it might not work very well. It might actually ruin your bearing. So these are things we can do for the circulation of heat. Steam system. Again, we say steam is still very common in this area. And what could be the problem with steam? First off, water level. We have a low water cutoff. If it's low, it's not going to run. So make sure we have a low water cutoff. Enough water in the system. If not, make sure that you fill in some water. And if we have an auto feeder system, auto water feeder system, make sure it's functioning correctly because sometimes it doesn't. Check the valves are in open position. That could be a little bit tricky. Again, usually righty tighty, lefty loosey, so make sure it's all left. Check the pressure control setting, because if the setting is not done correctly, probably you are very low in pressure, less than 0.5, and it's not gonna turn on. Again, this is all electrical. Check, this could be electrical, not always. Check the main vent. So if the vent for the system is not functioning and there is no way for the air to come out of the system, it's not going to push steam. Steam is heavier than air in density, so especially the steam that we make. So if there is no way for the air to leave, the steam is going. It's not going to displace the air. So it will only compress it, and that doesn't help us. Check the circuit for solenoids. Maybe there are some solenoids that open and close the steam. Not usually, but if there is, check the if there is solenoid, check the solenoid and make sure they are working. If we don't have enough heat, this is in any system. This could be that the burner is not sized correctly. Boiler, furnace is not sized correctly. It could be undersized. Especially if the tail, this always has been the problem. So if it's always been the problem, it could be a design problem. Check the thermostat and limit control. Make sure you compare the temperature reading on the thermostat with an outside thermometer. So sometimes maybe it's miscalibrated, need to be changed, or need to be recalibrated if it's manual. Check the water level. You could be running with low water, and that will have you not circulate enough heat throughout the system. And check the water float in a water system. Again, we're still in not yet. Too much heat. Thermostat is stuck or misreading. Limit control done the wrong way. The motorized valve is stuck. So if we have too much heat, we're letting too much hot water come in, or hot air or steam. So it could be something with your control. So it's gotta be a control problem. Check the flow control valve again for water flow. Okay, no hot water is if you have hot water system that is depending on your boiler. Check the mixing valve if you have one, if you're mixing hot water with the current water. Check limit control. Yeah, there's a small aquastat on the water tank that control when the water get heated or not, and with a small pump as well. Check vents, airflow, and ductwork, air filters, radiators, and piping. If you have not enough water, some of these, because air filter, I don't know if we have air filter in hot water. I don't think this makes sense, but or ductwork or airflow. This is something else. Check the radiators, water level, and piping for not enough hot water. Check the circulator, make sure actually it's running water, especially if we have one of this type where you have this is your boiler and this is your water tank. You could be having a circulator in here that whenever this runs low in temperature, it will circulate water back and forth. So check the circulator. Check the flow control valve, which actually controls the water coming in and out the boiler. Okay. If we have water leaks, make sure that the expansion tank is sized correctly. Also, the improper setting of aquastat. What does that mean? If the setting of the aquastat is too high, it's above 180 or 212, and the system is designed for hot water, you might expanding the water too much or building pressure, which means water will leak at some point. Coil leaks are very possible when it's corroded inside a boiler or a water tank. Do not fix a leaky boiler. That's an issue. So we don't want to fix a leaky boiler. We want to always replace them. It's not fixed. Do not use ceramics or glue or whatever. It has to be replaced. Circulator leaks. Some of them leak as a design to cool off, but that's in all pumps, not anymore. So we do not want to worry about circulator leaking if it's a little bit. But for the new pumps, you do not, or circulators, you do not have any leaks. Flanges, if they leak, you need to replace them, so check for that. Check also chimney for leak. If it's maybe it's a rain problem, maybe the chimney is leaking into your chimney. Also check for condensation. It could be a condensation problem. The basement is too humid and it's not actually. Oil leaks, check for fittings, replace gaskets. Also nozzles and seal. Usually if you've done the oil line correctly, it should not leak. If it leaks, there's something wrong with the fitting. Somebody probably stepped on it. And after drip problems, something happens inside the boiler where you have after dripping and the dripping come out of the boiler's body and leak underneath the boiler. Again, check the oil lines, and also check for spills when the tank was filled. Okay. If you have smoke, odor, or soot, it's always a combustion problem. It could be caused by delayed ignition, a venting problem. We don't have proper venting, or there's a crack in the vent. Could be not enough air, so we have incomplete combustion. And if the heat exchanger is broken or cracked inside the furnace, probably you'll have an issue with smoke, odor, or soot, mostly odor, because you'll smell the combustion fumes. Also check the fans, they could be leaking at some point or giving off too much pressure. That's not was the design pressure for the duct. If you have noise, check the pump gears, make sure it's not noisy. Try to locate the noise first. Do a vacuum test in the pump. Check for air, because air will cause the fluid inside the pipe to vibrate, and that could be causing vibration again. Or it could be a rotary. If anything vibrates, probably a rotary equipment, either a motor, anything that rotates is prone to vibration. So if you have a pump, a fan, a motor, probably it's a problem of rotation and noise. And the noise could be a spill, could be a drop, could be a water in the line that's keep rattling whenever flow comes in. So if you have bubbles in your oil and your water line, probably it will make a noise. If you have water in your duct line, probably you have some water spills or stagnation. So in conclusion, so we have those diagrams. We try to think and check those things. Sometimes you forget. There is a sheet on Blackboard for the eight steps for no heat call that can help you a little bit get some ideas and to find the problem. Again, when in doubt, consult the manufacturer. It requires more practice. You'll develop the tools to pinpoint the problem faster. Usually, attitude is a very key part, and keeping an open mind and be very observant. And sometimes it's saying I don't know is better than giving faulty information. If you don't know, you can find out. But if you just keep making up stuff, people will lose faith in you, and you will be spending time where it's not needed. Okay, so I'll post this online, and we'll discuss that in class.